You know what they say about humans, right? They are supposed to be these fragile, short-lived creatures who panic at the first sign of danger. Well, whoever said that clearly never met Marcus Kane, because right now, as I'm watching this absolute madman through our surveillance feeds, I'm starting to question everything my species has ever believed about Earth's so-called inferior inhabitants. My name is Thex9, and I'm what you might call the chief security observer for the Korvac Mining Consortium. Think of me as the guy who watches the watchers. Except today I'm watching something that's making my four stomachs churn with a mixture of fascination and terror. 3 rotations ago, we captured this human during a routine raid on their outer colony settlement. Standard procedure. Really. Humans had been getting too close to our classified mining operations on Kepler 42b, so we needed to send a message. Take a few prisoners, extract some intel, maybe use them for labor in the deep shafts. Simple, efficient, profitable. Marcus Kane was supposed to be just another number in our detention roster. Tall for a human at about 6.5 feet, with these unsettling blue eyes that seemed to calculate everything around him. The initial scans showed he was some kind of engineer, 32 years old according to their primitive aging system. Nothing special, nothing threatening. Oh, how wrong we were. See, here's the thing about the Korvac. We have been mining rare minerals across 17 different star systems for over 4 centuries. We know how to break planets apart, molecule by molecule. We have perfected the art of extracting every valuable resource from a world's core before moving on to the next target. We are efficient, we are systematic, and we are absolutely ruthless when it comes to dealing with primitive species who get in our way. But Marcus Kane? This human is making us look like amateurs. It started when our security chief, Commander Voth Prime, decided to make an example of him. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We'd drop him into Shaft 7, our deepest excavation site that goes down nearly 15 miles into the planet's mantle. No food, no water, no equipment, just a human in the suffocating darkness of a hole that even our advanced engineering teams found challenging to navigate. The shaft was supposed to be his tomb. A slow, agonizing death that would serve as a warning to any other humans who dared to interfere with our operations. We have used this method before on various species. Results are always the same. Panic, desperation, death within a few cycles. Marcus Kane looked Voth Prime straight in the eye and said, "Thanks for the head start." Head start? What kind of response is that to being sentenced to death in the most isolated, dangerous pit on the entire planet? I should have known right then that we were dealing with something different. But Korvac pride runs deep, and we have never met a species that could challenge our technological superiority. So we dropped him down Shaft 7 and waited for the inevitable screaming to begin. Except the screaming never came. Instead, after exactly 47 minutes of silence, our seismic sensors started picking up unusual vibrations from the lower levels. Not the random movements of a dying creature thrashing around in panic. These were rhythmic, purposeful, almost like someone was tapping out a complex pattern against the shaft walls. Probably just hallucinations before death, Voth Prime declared with typical Korvac arrogance. Humans are known for their weak mental states under pressure, but the vibrations continued. Hour after hour, day after day, and they were getting stronger. By the second rotation, our mining equipment on levels 12 through 15 started reporting mechanical irregularities. Nothing major at first, just minor fluctuations in power distribution and occasional communication static. Our tech teams assumed it was standard equipment degradation from the extreme heat and pressure at those depths. Then Marcus Kane's voice came crackling through our comm system. "Hey there, surface dwellers. Just wanted to let you know I have made some improvements down here. Hope you don't mind." The entire command center went silent. 37 of the consortium's finest minds just stood there with their mandibles hanging open, staring at speakers that shouldn't have been able to transmit anything from Shaft 7's lower levels. "Impossible," Voth Prime hissed, his neck frills flaring with agitation. "There's no communication equipment down there. The electromagnetic interference alone should prevent any signal transmission." Marcus Kane's laughter echoed through our speakers, and I swear it sounded like he was genuinely enjoying himself. "Oh, you guys are adorable. Did you really think dropping me into your little hole would solve your human problem? Because I have some news for you. The seismic readings spiked dramatically, and suddenly every screen in our control room lit up with error messages, power grid failures, structural integrity warnings, and most disturbing of all, unauthorized access alerts from our primary mining computer systems. You see, Marcus continued, his voice now coming through crystal clear as if he was standing right next to us. I'm not just any engineer. I specialize in deep core excavation and geothermal energy systems. And your little shack, it's given me direct access to something you probably didn't want anyone messing with. The temperature readings from the lower levels started climbing rapidly. Not the gradual increase you'd expect from normal geothermal activity, but sharp, controlled spikes that indicated someone was deliberately manipulating the planet's internal heat distribution. Commander Vida Prime's confidence finally cracked. What are you doing down there, human? Oh, just a little redecorating. See, your mining operation has been bleeding energy from this planet's core for years, but you have been doing it all wrong. Inefficient extraction methods, poor heat management, completely wasteful power distribution. It's honestly painful to watch. The main display screen flickered, and suddenly we were looking at detailed schematics of our entire mining operation. Not just the surface installations, but every tunnel, every power conduit, every piece of equipment we had on the planet, information that should have been locked behind 17 different security protocols. But don't worry, Marcus said, and I could hear that damned grin in his voice. I'm fixing it for you. The facility's main power core suddenly surged to 150% capacity. Then 200%. Our safety systems should have kicked in and shut everything down, but somehow they weren't responding. Every piece of mining equipment on the planet began operating at peak efficiency simultaneously, extracting resources at a rate that should have been physically impossible. How is he doing this? Someone whispered from the back of the control room. Marcus Kane answered as if he'd heard the question. Turns out your species never figured out how to properly harmonize artificial systems with planetary core dynamics. You just brute force your way through everything, which is horribly inefficient. But human, we have been working with planetary systems since before we left our home world. We understand the relationship between technology and natural forces. The resource extraction readings were climbing beyond anything we'd ever achieved. In the span of 6 hours, Marcus Kane had somehow reconfigured our entire operation to produce more rare minerals than we typically extracted in a full rotation. Vida Prime was frantically working his control console, trying to regain system access, but every command he entered was immediately overridden. This is impossible. He's just one primitive human with no equipment. Actually, Marcus corrected cheerfully, I have been building equipment. Your shaft provided excellent raw materials, and the heat from the planet's core makes for a fantastic power source. I have managed to construct a pretty sophisticated workshop down here. As if to prove his point, the seismic sensors detected what could only be described as construction activity. Heavy machinery moving, metal being shaped and assembled, complex electrical systems coming online, all of this happening 15 miles underground with no supplies except whatever he could scavenge from the shaft walls. The really interesting part, Marcus continued, is what I found when I reached the bottom of your little hole. You guys have been mining the outer edge of this planet's core, but you never bothered to actually examine what you were dealing with. This isn't just any old planetary core. This is a Hearthstone formation. Every Korvac in the room froze. Hearthstone cores were theoretical at best. The kind of ultra-rare planetary formation that mining engineers dream about, but never actually expect to find. A single Hearthstone core contained enough concentrated energy to power a star system for millennia. You didn't know, did you? Marcus asked, and his tone had shifted from playful to something more serious. You have been sitting on top of the most valuable energy source in known space, and you have been treating it like a common mineral deposit. The implications hit me like a meteor impact. If Marcus Kane had found a way to access and control a Hearthstone core, he wasn't just some trapped prisoner anymore. He was potentially the most powerful individual in the entire sector. Here's the thing about humans, Marcus said, his voice now carrying an edge that made my carapace shiver. We don't just adapt to situations, we improve them. And right now I'm improving your entire operation whether you like it or not. The facility's power output jumped to 300% capacity. Every machine, Every system, every piece of technology on the planet was now operating under his control. But more than that, the very ground beneath our feet began to vibrate with a deep, thrumming energy that suggested massive changes happening far below the surface. Commander Voth Prime finally found his voice. "What do you want, human? Resources? Freedom? We can negotiate." Marcus Kane's laughter filled the control room again, but this time it had a different quality. Not the amused chuckling of someone enjoying a joke, but the satisfied sound of a predator who had just cornered his prey. "Oh, Voth Prime, you still don't understand, do you? I don't want anything from you. I'm taking everything, starting with this planet's core." The main display showed a three-dimensional map of the planet's internal structure, and what I saw there made my blood run cold. The entire core region was now highlighted in pulsing red, with energy conduits extending outward like veins through the planet's mantle. Marcus Kane hadn't just accessed the Hearthstone core, he had somehow integrated himself into its control matrix. You see, the beautiful thing about Hearthstone formations is that they respond to direct neural interface. Most species can't handle the energy feedback, but humans, we have got these fascinating brains that can adapt to almost anything. And I have just made myself the primary control node for enough power to reshape reality itself. The temperature in the control room spiked as excess energy from the planet's core began radiating upward through the mining shafts. Warning klaxons started blaring as safety systems tried desperately to compensate for energy levels that were now climbing beyond all known parameters. "The question isn't what I want," Marcus continued. "The question is what I'm going to do with a planet-sized energy source and a very, very serious grudge against the species that tried to murder me." Through the viewport, I could see the horizon beginning to glow with an eerie orange light as geothermal vents across the planet's surface started releasing the excess energy that Marcus was channeling upward from the core. The very air seemed to shimmer with barely contained power. Commander Voth Prime was now openly panicking, his neck frills fully extended in the Korvac equivalent of absolute terror. "You can't control that much energy. You will destroy the entire planet." "Maybe," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "Or maybe I will just destroy everything on it that I don't like. Haven't decided yet." The seismic sensors went completely insane as something massive began moving in the planet's core region. Not the random shifting of geological activity, but the deliberate, purposeful movement of something being constructed or awakened on an unimaginable scale. "The really wonderful thing about being 15 miles underground," Marcus said, his voice now coming from every speaker in the facility simultaneously, "is that I have direct access to the planet's magnetic field generators, and magnetic fields, properly manipulated, can do some truly amazing things to any technology within a few thousand miles." As if to demonstrate, every piece of Korvac equipment on the planet simultaneously shut down for exactly 10 seconds before coming back online. It was a gentle reminder, a warning of what he could do if he chose to. "So here's how this is going to work," Marcus announced, his voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who held the power of a planet in his hands. "You are going to evacuate every Korvac from this world within the next 12 hours. You are going to leave behind all your mining equipment, all your weapons and all your ships except for the minimum necessary to get your people to safety." The control room erupted in protests and arguments, but Marcus simply continued speaking over the chaos. "If you try to fight me, I will demonstrate just how creative a human engineer can get with unlimited power and a serious motivation for revenge. If you try to negotiate, I will assume you are stalling for time and act accordingly. If you try to call for reinforcements..." Every screen in the facility suddenly displayed the same image, a real-time view of the Korvac fleet in orbit around the planet, except now each ship was surrounded by a faint energy field that was definitely not part of their original design. "I can extend the planet's magnetic field quite a bit further than you might expect. Your ships are currently experiencing what you might call gentle electromagnetic cadence. They can leave, but they can't attack, and they certainly can't call for help." The true scope of what Marcus Kane had accomplished in just 3 rotations began to sink in. He hadn't just survived being dropped into our deepest shaft. He hadn't just adapted to an impossible situation. He had taken control of forces that most species couldn't even comprehend, and he was using them with the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather. 12 hours, he repeated. After that, I start getting creative with continental drift. The communication channel went silent, leaving 37 of the most advanced military and mining specialists in Korthak space staring at each other in complete bewilderment. Commander Voth Prime slowly turned to face me, his usually composed demeanor completely shattered. Observer Thex 9, in your professional assessment, what exactly are we dealing with? I looked at the energy readings that were still climbing steadily, at the seismic data that showed impossible levels of controlled geological activity, at the orbital display that confirmed our entire fleet was now effectively held hostage by whatever Marcus Kane had built down there. Sir, I said, choosing my words very carefully, I believe we have just learned why humans are not actually the primitive species we assumed them to be. The planet's surface continued to glow brighter as Marcus Kane, 15 miles underground in what was supposed to be his tomb, settled in to demonstrate exactly what happens when you try to bury a human engineer with unlimited access to a planetary energy core. And somewhere in the back of my mind a terrifying thought began to form. If this was what one human could accomplish in 3 rotations with nothing but raw determination and whatever materials he could scavenge, what exactly was their entire species capable of when properly motivated? We were about to find out, and I had the distinct feeling that the Korthak Consortium's days of easy expansion across the galaxy were about to come to a very abrupt end. You want to know the difference between Korthak military doctrine and human psychology? We believe in overwhelming force, applied systematically, until resistance ceases. Humans apparently believe in turning your own weapons against you while making jokes about it. I learned this lesson during the longest 12 hours of my 400-year lifespan. Commander Vought Prime, to his credit, didn't immediately panic after Marcus Kane's ultimatum. Instead, he did what any seasoned Korthak's military officer would do. He tried to regain control through superior firepower and tactical superiority. Observer Thex 9, he barked, his neck frills still twitching with barely controlled rage. Initiate Emergency Protocol 7. I want every weapons system on this planet targeting Shaft 7. If this human thinks he can threaten the Korthak Consortium, he's about to learn what real power looks like. I dutifully activated the protocol, watching as our defensive grid came online. Plasma cannons, seismic disruptors and molecular dissolution arrays all swiveled toward the coordinates of Marcus Kane's current position. Enough firepower to level a small moon, all focused on one 15-mile deep hole in the ground. Fire when ready, Voth Prime commanded. The weapons discharged simultaneously. For exactly 0.3 seconds, enough energy to glass an entire city poured down Shaft 7 in a concentrated beam of destruction that should have vaporized anything within a 50-mile radius. Then every single weapon exploded. Not malfunction exploded. Not overheated and shut down exploded. Completely, utterly spectacularly exploded in a series of chain reactions that lit up the night sky like a festival celebration. Marcus Kane's voice crackled through our speakers before the echoes of the explosions had even faded. Really? That's your opening move? I give you a perfectly reasonable 12-hour deadline. And you respond with planetary bombardment? The main display screen flickered to life, showing us a real-time view from inside Shaft 7. Except it wasn't a shaft anymore. Marcus Kane had somehow expanded the original 15-mile hole into what looked like a vast underground city. Gleaming metal corridors stretched away into the distance, lit by the soft orange glow of harnessed geothermal energy. And there, standing in what appeared to be a control room that would make our most advanced facilities look primitive, was the human himself. He looked comfortable, clean, well-fed, and completely at ease in his underground domain. Behind him I could see massive machinery humming quietly, displays showing energy readings that made my head spin, and what looked suspiciously like automated manufacturing systems churning out equipment I couldn't even identify. You know what the really funny part is? Marcus said, gesturing casually at a wall of monitors that showed every Korthak installation on the planet. You just proved my point about efficiency. All that energy you wasted trying to kill me, I redirected it into my construction projects, so thanks for the power boost. Commander Voth Prime's mandibles clicked frantically as he processed this information. That's impossible. Those weapons contained enough energy to destroy a continent, And now that energy is running my expanded manufacturing facilities, Marcus replied cheerfully. See, the thing about planetary cores is that they are really good at energy absorption and redistribution, especially when someone who understands harmonic resonance frequencies is managing the flow. I watched in horrified fascination as the seismic displays showed the true extent of what Marcus had built. The underground complex now stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, with energy conduits connecting it to geothermal vents across 3 continents. He hadn't just taken control of the planet's core. He had turned the entire world into his personal workshop. But I'm not unreasonable, Marcus continued, settling into what looked like a command chair that seemed to be grown rather than built from the surrounding rock. You still have 11 hours and 47 minutes to evacuate. I suggest you use that time wisely. Thoth Prime slammed his fist against the control console. Contact the orbital fleet. Tell them to prepare for immediate surface bombardment. We will crack this planet open if we have to. The communications officer, a nervous young Korvac named Jex-5, looked up from his station with obvious distress. Sir, I'm not getting any response from the fleet. All communication channels are being blocked by some kind of electromagnetic interference. What kind of interference? Marcus Kane answered before Jex-5 could respond. The kind that happens when someone uses a planetary magnetic field as a really big jamming device. Your ships can't communicate with each other, they can't communicate with you, and they definitely can't communicate with Korvac Command back home. The implications of this hit the entire command staff simultaneously. We weren't just dealing with one human who had gained access to unusual technology. We were completely cut off from reinforcements, unable to coordinate with our orbital assets, and facing an opponent who had somehow weaponized an entire planet. Oh, and before you ask, Marcus added, those energy fields around your ships aren't just for show. Try to charge weapons or initiate attack protocols, and you will find that your power systems have some very interesting new safety features, courtesy of my new electromagnetic management capabilities. Vothbert Trime turned to me with desperation creeping into his voice. Observer, recommendations. I stared at the displays showing energy readings that defied every law of physics I understood. Seismic activity that suggested construction projects on a continental scale, and electromagnetic signatures that indicated technological capabilities beyond our most advanced theories. Sir, I said slowly, I recommend we consider the possibility that our initial assessment of human capabilities may have been incomplete. That's when Marcus Kane did something that changed everything. You know what, Vothert Prime? I think we need to have a proper conversation. Face to face. The air in the command center suddenly shimmered, and a perfect 3-dimensional hologram of Marcus Kane materialized in the center of the room. Not a flat projection on a screen, but a fully interactive display that looked solid enough to touch. How are you doing this? Vothprime demanded. Holographic projection requires specialized equipment and massive power consumption. Marcus looked around the command center with obvious interest, as if he was taking a casual tour rather than projecting himself 15 miles through solid rock. Actually, it's pretty simple when you have direct access to the planet's electromagnetic field. I'm basically using the entire world as a transmission array. He walked over to one of our tactical displays and started examining it with the curiosity of an engineer studying an interesting but flawed design. You guys really do love your brute force approaches, don't you? Look at this power distribution system. So wasteful. And these defensive algorithms, honestly, it's like you have never heard of adaptive response protocols. Before anyone could stop him, Marcus reached out and touched the display screen. Instantly, every system in the command center began operating more efficiently. Power consumption dropped by 30%, processing speed increased dramatically, and our defensive scanners suddenly had 3 times their normal range. There, he said with satisfaction. That should help with your energy costs. The casual display of technological superiority left the entire room speechless. Marcus Kane hadn't just taken control of a planetary core. He had somehow developed the ability to improve any technology he encountered simply by touching it. The thing is, Marcus continued, settling into a chair that definitely hadn't been in the command center a moment before, I have been thinking about your evacuation deadline, and I have decided to make you a better offer. Commander Voth Prime found his voice. What kind of offer? Well, you could evacuate and leave me here with a very valuable planet and all your mining equipment. That's certainly an option. Or, Marcus paused dramatically, you could stick around and learn something. Learn what? How to do your jobs properly. The holographic Marcus stood up and gestured, causing a three-dimensional display of the entire star system to appear in the air above us. See? The Corvac Consortium has been strip mining worlds for centuries, right? Extract everything valuable. Leave behind a dead rock, move on to the next target. It's profitable, but it's also incredibly wasteful. The display zoomed in on our current planet, showing resource deposits that our surveys had completely missed. This world has enough rare minerals to supply your entire civilization for millennia. But you have been extracting maybe 2% of what's actually available. Your mining techniques are so crude that you are leaving 98% of the good stuff buried where you can't reach it. Votha Prime leaned forward despite himself. That's impossible. Our surveys are the most advanced in known space. Your surveys look for surface indicators and shallow deposits. Marcus corrected. But the really valuable stuff is always in the deep formations, integrated with the planetary core systems. You can't extract that with conventional mining because it requires understanding the relationship between geological structure and energy dynamics. The display shifted, showing a cross-section of the planet's internal structure. But now it highlighted massive mineral veins that our equipment had never detected, energy sources that dwarfed anything we'd previously discovered, and resource concentrations that would make this world more valuable than our last 50 conquests combined. I have spent the last 12 hours mapping everything this planet has to offer, Marcus explained. And I have designed extraction methods that can access all of it without damaging the planetary systems that keep everything stable. I found myself staring at resource estimates that couldn't possibly be accurate. If Marcus was right, this single world contained more wealth than the Corvac Consortium had accumulated in 4 centuries of expansion. But here's the catch, Marcus continued, his expression becoming more serious. I'm not giving you this information. I'm not sharing my extraction techniques. And I'm definitely not letting you continue your strip mining operations anywhere in this sector. The command center erupted in angry protests, but Marcus simply raised his hand and somehow every voice except his own was muted. Instead, I'm offering you a partnership. The silence that followed was deafening. You provide the infrastructure, the transportation and the distribution networks, Marcus explained. I provide the extraction technology, the efficiency improvements, and the sustainable mining techniques that will let you harvest resources without destroying entire worlds. He gestured again, and the display showed projections of mining operations that produced 10 times our current output while actually improving planetary ecosystems rather than destroying them. The profits would be split 50-50 between the consortium and human colonies. All extraction operations would be subject to environmental oversight. And most importantly, no more genocide of primitive species who happen to be inconveniently located near valuable resources. Commander Voth Prime's voice returned as Marcus lowered his hand. You are suggesting we abandon centuries of successful expansion policy in favor of what? Cooperation with species we could easily conquer? Marcus Kane's expression hardened, and suddenly the temperature in the command center dropped by several degrees. Voth Prime, let me explain something about human psychology. We don't like bullies, we really don't like genocide, and we absolutely despise species who think they can murder us for convenience. The holographic projection somehow became more solid, more real, as Marcus leaned forward in his chair. You dropped me into this shaft expecting me to die. Instead, I have taken control of enough power to sterilize every Corvac world in this sector. I could turn your entire fleet into scrap metal with a thought. I could destabilize the cores of every planet you have colonized and watch your civilization collapse into the void. The energy readings on every display spiked dramatically, and I realized that Marcus wasn't bluffing. The power flowing through the planetary systems was now sufficient to accomplish exactly what he'd threatened. But I'm not going to do that, he continued, his voice returning to its previous casual tone. Because humans believe in giving people chances to be better than they are, so here's your choice. You can accept my partnership offer and learn to exploit resources sustainably, or you can reject it and find yourselves completely cut off from this entire sector of space. You can't blockade our trade routes. Marcus smiled, and it was not a reassuring expression. Actually, I can. See, while you have been standing here arguing, I have been expanding my control network. Every Hearthstone core within 50 light-years is now responding to my commands. That includes the cores of the planets where you have established your major refueling and supply stations. The strategic implications hit me like a meteor impact. If Marcus could control Hearthstone cores across multiple star systems, he could effectively shut down Korvac expansion throughout this entire region of space. The beautiful thing about Hearthstone formations, Marcus explained, is that they are all connected through subspace energy networks. Once you know how to interface with one, you can potentially access all of them, and I have had 3 very productive rotations to figure out the connection protocols. Commander Voth Prime slumped in his chair, the full weight of the situation finally sinking in. What exactly are you proposing? Simple. The consortium signs a treaty with Earth acknowledging human territorial rights and agreeing to sustainable resource extraction practices. In exchange, I share the technology that will make you the most powerful mining operation in the galaxy, and I guarantee that no other species will ever be able to challenge your dominance in this sector. The offer was simultaneously generous and terrifying. Marcus was essentially proposing to make the Korvac consortium more powerful than ever before, while ensuring that they could never again use that power for genocide or territorial conquest. How do we know you will honor such an agreement? Voth Prime asked. Marcus Kane's holographic form stood up and walked over to the viewport that showed the planet's surface. In the distance, the glow from hundreds of geothermal vents created a spectacular aurora effect across the night sky. Because I'm not going anywhere, he said simply. This planet is my home now. I have built something here that I'm proud of, something that can serve as a model for cooperation between species, instead of conquest, and I will be watching to make sure our agreement is honored. He turned back to face the command center, and his expression carried the absolute confidence of someone who held the power to reshape the galaxy. Besides, betraying a partnership with humans generally doesn't work out well for the species involved. We have long memories, creative problem-solving skills, and a talent for making very uncomfortable situations even more uncomfortable for people who break their promises. The 12-hour deadline arrived exactly on schedule. Commander Voth Prime, after consulting with what remained of his senior staff and receiving no helpful guidance from our isolated orbital fleet, made the decision that would change Korvac policy for generations to come. He accepted Marcus Kane's partnership offer. 2 standard years later, I'm writing this report from my new position as Liaison Observer for Human Korvac Cooperative Operations. The consortium's profits have increased by 47% since implementing Marcus Kane's extraction techniques. We have successfully established sustainable mining operations on 37 worlds without displacing a single indigenous species. And the technology improvements that Marcus continues to provide have made our civilization more advanced than we ever imagined possible. But the most remarkable change isn't in our technology or our profits. It's in how we think about other species. You see, Marcus Kane didn't just take control of a planetary core that day. He took control of the entire concept of human-alien relations in this sector of space. By demonstrating that cooperation could be more profitable than conquest, he fundamentally altered the strategic calculations that had driven Korvac expansion for centuries. Other species in the region have started approaching us for similar partnerships. They have seen what humans can accomplish when they are motivated to solve problems instead of just survive them, and they have noticed that working with Earth colonies tends to result in technological breakthroughs that benefit everyone involved. The humans, it turns out, weren't the primitive species we thought they were. They were the species we needed to become. Marcus Kane still lives 15 miles underground on what we now call New Terra, managing the most productive mining operation in known space and serving as humanity's unofficial ambassador to a dozen different civilizations. He's built an entire city down there, complete with parks and recreational facilities, and what he calls proper coffee shops. Sometimes, when I'm reviewing the monthly productivity reports that continue to exceed all projections, I think about what would have happened if we'd simply treated Marcus Kane as a prisoner of war instead of trying to murder him for convenience. But then I remember that Marcus Kane is human, and humans have this disturbing tendency to turn any situation to their advantage regardless of the circumstances. We might have delayed the inevitable by treating him better, but we probably couldn't have prevented it. After all, you can't keep a good human down, even if you drop him 15 miles underground into what's supposed to be his tomb, especially then.